Hello, my friend. How are you? I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. Another awesome episode with another awesome human. And today's awesome human is Onnie Michalsky. Did I say it right?
You did.
Yay! I love when I don't butcher people's names. And you're from Moms Without Capes.
Yes.
That's awesome. First, I'm super curious. Where did you come up with Moms Without Capes?
So it's a play on the supermom,
Right?
right? And how we need to take off our capes and put ourselves on our to-do list, like focus on ourselves instead of trying to take care of everyone else and everything else, and making sure that we're making space and time for ourselves.
And oh my gosh, don't we have trouble doing that?
Yes,
Right?
it is. That's I created a whole business about how to do
Right?
it.
And I'm curious, did you do it because you found that you were doing that to yourself?
It's so funny that you're bringing this up because 2 days ago, I am in a coaching group and I was like crying. I'm like, who am I to teach people this or coach people on this when I am struggling so bad with overwhelm right now? And my group was like so supportive and they're like, that makes you more relatable. And my coach is like, it's not like you're never gonna have your cape on again. Like your people need to know that you struggle as well, but you have found some tools to be helpful, and that's what you share with them. And so, and I can recover much quickly. So,
Right.
yes, to answer your question, it does come from personal experience.
It's I was last week I was talking with a woman. We were talking about how nobody's perfect. She said, she loses her mind every now and then. We all lose our minds now and again. As and
It's
it
okay.
is true that if you can recognize it and recover it faster,
Hmm.
that's then you're already that much further ahead, right?
Right. That's where that edge comes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know we were going to talk about sleep. Can I tell you that when I hit menopause, I suddenly became addicted to, or maybe I wasn't addicted to it because I wasn't getting it. I became obsessed with making sure I had enough sleep because I wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
So,
You recognize that that was an area that needed some work.
yeah, I was losing my mind. So,
Mhm.
and I know moms struggle with that a lot.
They do. Yeah. I mean, especially midlife. Midlife
Right.
moms struggle a lot. You know, the work I do can actually I am let me just do a little bit of background information for
Yeah,
you.
do it.
I am a therapist as well, like a licensed clinical therapist here in Montana, and my background is cognitive behavioral therapy. And
Okay.
so Moms Without Capes was born because I was like, I'm also a mom of six. So
Whoa.
that, that in itself, like the experience, the education, my background experience, like my struggles with the supermom cape, I feel have all led me to where I am today with the Moms Without Capes movement. And so what I teach or what I coach on or what I focus on in my coaching hat and in my counseling hat can help beyond moms. Can help beyond moms. Of course we're supposed to niche down and everything. And I'm like, I have this experience as a mom and in particular, like specifically with the super mom. So that is why I developed Moms Without Capes. But sleep or struggles with sleep can definitely inflict like across the population.
Well, and that's we were talking just earlier. Like, I don't have children, but
Mm-hmm.
man, do I think sleep is important.
It
And I
is.
also think, I just being a person who takes care of yourself first. I obviously it's called back to me, right? So I think it's important. And you just focus on your moms. And I think all of messages like of that self care are important.
Yeah, it,
Yeah.
it definitely is. And sleep is so important because it impacts our entire day, our entire lifestyle, or our entire quality of life
Yeah.
is is depends on the amount of sleep we get, the quantity and the quality of sleep that we're getting. And so my interest in sleep has come from because I've got to tell you, I actually sleep really well. That in itself didn't come from like me trying to figure out, well, how can I sleep
With
better?
6 kids.
Yes, I've been known to to sleep through alarms and smoke. Like I am out. Like when I fall asleep and it's pretty quick, I am out for the count. And
Wow.
so what I my interest in sleep has come from I was trained in the treatment of insomnia and started realizing like through conversations that a lot of because most of my conversations are with moms and especially like as I'm trying to build my business realize that there's so many moms that don't get that sleep that they need and then they're caught in super moms like caught in that endless cycle of like not getting the sleep and then feeling overwhelmed dragging during the day. Then we've got our mental load which we're carrying and all of these things and then it comes to like dinner time and you're just too tired to even make a decision. So like everything kind of just keeps building on each other and then you go to sleep and then you repeat it the next day, right? So it's like
Right.
the sleep is such an essential part of self-care that I realized that I need to start talking more about sleep and how to improve your sleep to others to teach them what I know and some tricks and strategies about how to improve their sleep so that they can improve their quality of life. Like I would not be serving them if I was to just not talk about sleep because it's such an important part of you.
And it is interesting. It is so true. I talk about all kinds of wellness, and I think sleep interweaves because if you, I know for me, if I don't get enough sleep, am I going to eat the best thing for my
Yeah.
body? No, I am not. I'm going to bust out the chocolate and the carbs and whatever I can get my hands on. And am I going to be nice to my partner? There's a chance I'll be crabby. I
Right?
won't
Yeah,
be
that irritability.
happy, right? I won't think clearly necessarily for the period of time I need to concentrate on something like so it affects so many parts of your life
Yeah,
and it's just one thing.
it is. But it's something that once you start focusing on, right? Like becoming aware of, like you said, like you've been focusing a lot on your sleep and making sure that you're getting enough and you're improving it. Once you become aware of that's an area that you can improve on and you start taking the steps to improve on it, you're going to notice all of those other things, the symptoms that you just shared
Right.
are going to start decreasing. Are going to start to but awareness is key. You have to realize the importance of sleep before you start making the changes.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot where to change something first you got to know there's
Yeah,
something
you
to
got to know.
change. And it's then you have to decide to change it, but then you actually have to do it.
Yes, yeah,
So
yeah.
there's an extra step people skip. I've
Right.
decided to, and then they're like, why isn't it working? You skipped the last step.
Yeah.
You made a comment about enough sleep. So, what are your thoughts on enough? Enough.
Um, well, I mean, of course it varies by person to person, but typically they say 6 to 8 hours, which is kind of like a common knowledge. I feel like it's common knowledge
It
now.
is,
It's
but
like
I
in
sometimes I
adult
feel like it's not enough. Is that 6 to 8 hours of a sleep time or in bedtime?
sleep, a sleep time, right? Because how many times have you gone to bed and laid there awake, which is what we'll talk about now, like next,
Yes.
sleep worries.
Perfect segue.
Then you're laying in bed, it just, your mind is just racing and you might pick up your phone or you might pick up a book like trying to do things that are you think are going to like just bore you to sleep and it's doing the opposite. And so then you finally get to sleep and you wake up the next morning and you feel yourself walking around in that brain fog or you
Right.
feel like that you're not your best self. And even though you might have spent 10 to 12 hours in bed, that sleep that you had wasn't the kind of sleep that you needed.
Right.
So there's actually like we won't get into the whole science of sleep during this episode, but you've got so many cycles of sleep that you need to go through, all the different stages, and making sure that nowadays there's activity trackers that a lot of them will track your sleep and see like, well, what kind of sleep are you getting? And they'll even the one that I have, I just got it and realized that it actually gives me a sleep score.
Is it a Fitbit?
Yeah, it gives me a sleep
Mine
score.
gives me a sleep score and I'm like, how do you know whether I
How
was
do you
dreaming
even
or
look,
not?
right? Like,
It'll give you
'cause I
my,
think it goes off of heartbeat, like your heart rate and all of
oh,
that. Like that all plays. Like they
right.
can measure the stages of sleep through that. I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I don't know.
Because it measures deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, and awake.
And probably like maybe restlessness.
That's what
And
it
I know
counts
it
as
measures
awake
my heart
time.
rate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found, I first, I mean, I never wanted a Fitbit because I thought I didn't want, this is, shows you old school. I didn't want the man tracking me.
Right. Like my husband.
But, but I got it for free. And then I started wearing it and I was like, oh, a sleep score. And, I said I was a little addicted to knowing my sleep. So then it becomes a competition. But how do you compete with yourself on making sure you get enough sleep? Because I can be in bed for 10 hours and my sleep score will be lower than if was in
Yeah.
bed for 8 hours, which I find fascinating. And I mean, I know, yeah, there is that 6 to 8 hours, but it's like the quality of being there. Because
And it
if you,
also depends on your activity level during the day.
oh, right.
Not even just physical activity, but your mental activity through the day. Like how much energy you're expending during the day is going to have an effect on how much sleep you need through the night. So,
Yeah,
like when you're feeling like more stressed out, or you're feeling like more heaviness, or you're doing more activity, more things on your schedule, like that's the times that you need more sleep because your body needs that's sleep is so important because it creates that time to be able to heal and to repair neurons and like pathways in the brain. And
right.
there's so much that happens when we're sleeping that when we're denying ourselves that good night's sleep, those things can happen.
And it's so true. Like it is like when you're physically active that you feel physically tired.
Yeah.
But I had a stroke in October 2020, October 29th, 2021. It's ingrained in my memory. And I had to sleep so much that
Yeah.
my body physically started to get stiff and sore because I was
Mhm.
just like, I'm just too tired to even
Yeah, that
move
mental fatigue.
physically because my brain needed that sleep
Yeah.
to repair itself. So it's so true. I mean, if you've had a big stress is a big brain sucker.
Yes, energy sucker of the mind,
Oh my
mental
gosh.
fatigue.
And then, so do you have strategies to help people who lay in bed going, did you send that email? What about the groceries? Oh my God, what am I?
Yes,
Blah,
I
blah, blah,
do.
blah,
I
blah.
do. My number one strategy for that, well, okay, I'm just going to shoot this right out of the gate.
Shoot
My
it.
number one strategy is to make space during the day to process your thoughts. Because often we go through our day and we don't create that time or space to think about our thoughts. And so when your head hits the pillow at night, it's like your mind turns on and it's like you finally are letting me process the
Oh, wow.
day. So typically when you start giving yourself that time and space during the day, you're going to find that you don't need to think that much at night, that you can get quieter and your mind can get quieter when your head hits the pillow. So that's my number one advice is to make sure that you are giving yourself some time during the day, almost like a worry period.
Right.
And that sounds ridiculous. When I first heard about a worry period, I was like, what? Like who would do that? But it has actually been scientifically proven that if you give yourself a worry period during the day, when you are at your highest point, like when you are feeling your most alert and feeling good, you give yourself not more than 20 minutes, a scheduled time from 1 o'clock to 1:20. This is where I'm going to sit down and with my piece of paper and my pencil and focus on what are those thoughts that are coming up for me at night. And that might mean that you might need to keep a pen and paper on your
Oh,
nightstand to jot down some key words so that when you go to your worry period, you actually have this space and you're like, okay, let's some of your worries you're going to get to and be like, why am I even worried about this? This is
right.
ridiculous. Like, why am I even worried about this? And then other things, you're going to be like, okay, let me try to come up with like the best possible solution at this time. And if you didn't solve it within 20 minutes, it's okay to shelve it. But then that night when you're lying in bed, you actually give yourself that reminder, like, I am not going to solve the world's problems at midnight. I worked on this problem when I was at my best, and I'll return to it tomorrow when I'm at my best. Like, there's no, so like giving yourself those reminders and getting yourself into that habit,
Right.
giving yourself time during the day, you're going to see there's three things that we typically worry about at night when we're trying to go to sleep. We start worrying about those everyday things, just like you mentioned, like, did I send in that bill, or did I, make that appointment? Those just everyday things. You also worry about getting to sleep. So I won't be able to sleep because I took a nap today. I won't be able to sleep because of dot, 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 right? And then there's those things that you worry about that are come from the consequences of insufficient sleep.
Hmm.
So I stopped looking at my alarm when I set my alarm, because I stopped looking at the fact that they tell me how many, like, if I'm going to be waking up at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, that means at this point, I'm only going to get 6 hours and 30 minutes of sleep, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, because that would put me into a feeling of anxiety.
Like,
I'd
oh
be
my
like,
God, I'm only going to get this many
I'm
hours of
only gonna
sleep.
get 6 hours, and then like I'm only gonna get 6 hours and 15 minutes. Everybody leave the room. I need to go to sleep. Like, I start worrying about what is gonna happen because I'm only gonna get so many hours of sleep. So I start like the countdown, and the math starts happening in my head. And if I don't get enough sleep, I'm gonna mess up that presentation, or I'm not gonna be able to, you know, I'm a counselor, so I see some clients that way. And so I'm like, I'm not going to be able to pay attention to what they're saying because I'm going to be in the brain fog. Like, I get into this like cyclical like pattern where it's hard for me to calm myself down.
And that keeps you up because you're calculating, you're counting down like, oh, now
Yes.
it's only 6 hours and 10 minutes.
Yes. So thinking of like those consequences of not getting enough sleep. So those are the three things, the main worries that we would worry about. And those are the things that you would write down. And I'm actually giving your listeners um, a download. It's called an ABCD. Okay. And we'll go through that in a minute. But
Okay.
it's going to help it's going to help you get to the thoughts that are coming up in your mind, and then how to go through the process of eliminating them, or I wouldn't say eliminate, dealing with them, dealing with those worries so that they're not popping up in your mind as you go to sleep.
I love that you're scheduling. I've heard someone say that before. Like, I schedule my worry time. It's like, I worry at, this time. I was like, oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
postpone and you schedule it in, so
So
that
when
that
it comes in, you're like, okay, I've got that scheduled for later.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, it's kind of like if you have something that you want to get done, like right now, we're recording in January. So I've got like some things I got to file with the state, like our state, what's it called? The annual report, right? So I wrote it down 3 weeks from now in my calendar. So it's not something that's in my mind. It's
Right.
something that I already wrote down. I know that I'm going to deal with it in 3 weeks. There's no reason I need to worry about it now. Same thing applies with worries. Like, you start thinking of these things like, now am I going to remember that tomorrow? Keep a pen and paper right by you, write down a keyword, and you're good. Like, shelve that until, and this isn't a process, or this isn't a system that's going to work tonight. But
Yeah.
with time, you've got to give yourself that grace. And with consistency, you're going to condition your mind to realize that you are going to deal with those worries. It's just not right now when it's time to go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And so are you going to tell us what the ABCD is?
I am.
Oh,
Yes.
yay! Bonus round.
So the ABCD process is a process that you can use at night, but you can also use it with some negative thinking during the day. But we're going to talk specifically about how to use it with your sleep time worries. The first thing is the best way to deal with your worries is to understand them. And that's what the ABCD process is going to allow you to do. So the A part, I'm going to go through and then we'll go back and look for examples. I'll share with you an example. So
Okay.
the A is the activating event, or like what is happening right then and there. The B is the belief. or what do you think is going to happen as a result? The C is a consequence, which is how are you feeling about this? So B is the thought or the belief, and C is that feeling or the emotion that results from that thought. What is the intensity of that thought or that consequence that you think is going to happen, or that feeling, I mean? And then D is, are there any alternative outcomes? And this is the part I'm encouraging you to do it. Do it the next day, right? All of this the next day. At night, you just want to put down a keyword, and then you're going to postpone that worry. So when you sit down during your worry time, you're going to look at this log and be able to pull up, because of that keyword, pull up, well, what was on your mind? What was that thought? And that's going to be your activating event. So for example, you're lying in bed thinking about the meeting that you have the next day with a potential client. And so that's the actual situation. The next thing is the belief. What do you think? What are you thinking about? So you might be thinking, I need to land this client. She could hate me. I'll forget to say something important. She's never going to hire me, right? Like all of these things that you're thinking. These are all your beliefs
They're
coming.
always the negative ones too.
Yes. Well, that's what's keeping you up. You know, you're
Yeah.
not, rarely are you lying in bed thinking about, well, you might be lying in bed thinking like, oh, I'm excited for tomorrow, but that's not really going to keep you up.
No, not the same.
Not the same, no. So then after you get done, what are all the thoughts that are coming up? You're going to start thinking about the consequence, or what are you feeling as a result? The example I'm going with here might lead you to feel discouraged, worried, disappointed. All of these negative feelings or uncomfortable feelings might be coming up for you. And then this is the most important part of the whole process, is to start disputing that. So you go back to the B, your beliefs, and start seeing these things are possible, right? You might not land her, she may not hire you, but is it probable, right? Like,
Right.
what are the chances of that actually happening? And is there any evidence that disputes that? And some of the evidence might be, I have gone over this presentation so many times, and other clients have hired me. I am going to land this client because I've already talked with her. She already is a great candidate for whatever it is that is collecting that evidence to dispute those beliefs or those thoughts. And then you can even rate the feeling that comes from that. If you want to take it a step further and say, okay, these new beliefs, these new thoughts that I've come up with, how do I feel as a result? It might be the opposite. It might be you feel encouraged. You feel excited. You feel ready to go out. And this is the important part, to see that there is more evidence that goes against those thoughts that are coming through your mind at night. And then that night, so because our thoughts are based on our beliefs, these deeply ingrained beliefs, and it might come from like maybe a lack of self-confidence, right? So these beliefs that you hold about yourself we tend to have these same thoughts come up, or similar thoughts, because they're based on those beliefs.
Right.
So that night when you're lying in bed and some thoughts might come up that remind you of that belief that you hold, or like something similar, you've already have done the work. So that's why I said, like, it takes a while, because then you start noticing that there's certain themes,
Right.
thoughts that you're having. And because you've already taken the time to reflect on those thoughts and shift your beliefs, you're going to be able to kind of, it's going to start happening in the moment. Whereas those worries start decreasing because you're able to challenge them on the spot. It just takes that making time for yourself, making time
Right.
to reflect on your worries, or taking time to think about your thoughts is so important.
And honoring, if like put it in your calendar and
Mm-hmm.
honor that space and do it.
Yes.
Because how many of us will put things in our calendar and not do them?
No, exactly. Treat it like you would like an appointment with someone else, a date with yourself. and then make sure that you protect that. And both of us, Heather, can get into like boundary setting and being able to say no, and like all of those things that prevent us from making that time and space for ourselves. And so it is super, not even super, it's uber important to be honoring that time with yourself, to be able to work through to get that sleep, because sleep is super important.
I mean, yeah, when we were talking about that, like once you get that sleep, I wonder, I've never felt like sleeping was selfish, but it's like you're not taking anything from anyone by getting enough rest. You're giving them more of what you've got because
Yeah.
you have more energy and you have
Yes.
more capacity. And and it is true, like so quite often, I mean, the worries that you have are just stories,
Yeah,
right?
what we're
I mean,
telling ourselves, the narratives.
yes. We've I listened to a coach who's like, this is just a fact. You created the story that went with it. It's like, crap, I did.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's
trying to
being
dissect
able
what
to
is
catch
that.
it.
Hmm.
Being able to catch it, it's hard sometimes because we're not practiced at it.
Hmm.
So it's and giving yourself that time to practice those things and patience. I mean,
Yeah, and grace, all of the good stuff, like being patient, because Rome wasn't built in a day, and a lot of times we give up before you've actually given. What's that story about? I don't even know why I'm bringing it up, because I probably won't even be able to tell it correctly. But it's the story where like the guy buys like the farm, and like they try for years trying to dig out diamonds or whatever, and then he finally gives up and sells it, and then the next guy who buys it, like discovers that he's like on this whole field of diamonds, like finds all the diamonds, and the last guy was like so close, but then gave up, right?
right?
We always feel that way, and then we move on without actually doing that deeper work that's required of us to uncover our true self.
And it's true. It's like when it gets hard, this isn't true for everyone, but when it gets hard, quite often it's like, oh, and you stop.
Hmm. Yeah,
But that's like
the
usually
magic
right on the
happens.
edge of like the diamonds.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't think now I'm going to go look up that story. I don't think I know that one. But there's versions of it. It's like,
Hmm.
it's like if you want to get from here to there, you don't go halfway and turn back.
Yeah, yeah. I always use that analogy about driving from like New York to California. Like you may not know where you're going. Like you can't see California, but like you can see so far ahead. Like you see like where the headlights are. But and so you just keep going, like having faith that you're going to end in your destination, even though you can't see that destination.
That's true.
You
You
don't know
know,
where you're going, but like you continually do the work, do what you learn is like, you know, life is so full of trial and error. Right? Like we don't know what the heck we're doing. We've never been this age, this person, like, and so every day is just like this,
these
you know,
experiences, this
having that
thing,
open mind. Yeah.
these things that are going on around us. I um I was actually, do you know who James Wedmore is? You must.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was listening to his podcast this morning and apparently it comes from Silicon Valley. Fail quickly, fail often, and fail forward.
Yes. It's true.
It's like, okay, I think I've got that down. I mean, I've made so many mistakes and I'll just keep making them because now I used to get really upset when I made a mistake and now I just think it's hilarious. And I think it's fun to make mistakes and I just keep going. So,
You know what? The skill comes in being able to like just laugh at yourself and be like, what? And just keep going.
what the heck was that all about? Oh my Lord. Yeah, exactly. So um, so you have a course? You have a,
I do. So like dealing with your sleep worries is just a small part of the pie, right? Because there's so much more that goes into getting your good night's sleep. We're just talking about just a little bit of like the mental energy that you're using when you want to be sleeping. So the other parts, I created a whole self care or sleep It's called Sleep Matters Self-Care for the Troubled Sleeper.
Oh,
And it's a whole course that also brings in sleep hygiene. So, like things like creating that nighttime routine and making sure that your environment is set up that's, conducive to sleep. And then it also includes reconditioning your mind and body to equate the bed with sleep, because that's a big thing.
oh yeah.
Watching TV, reading books, playing on your phone, the bed should only be used for sleep, sickness, and sex. Other than that, you take it out of the bedroom, because your mind and your body starts equating the bed with all of these other activities. So then when you're ready to go to sleep, like it's not going to, it's like, no, we've done all these other things. So it walks you through, the course walks you through how to recondition so that your mind starts equating the bed once again with sleep, so that you get that sleep.
It's true. I mean, we forget sometimes that we have trained our brains this to
Mm.
act this way. And you just reminded me, so I we look after a dog. We're the godparents for a dog. And she knows that if you pick up this backpack, that she's going to the park to play frisbee. How should I was
That's
like,
funny. Our dog knows it to the
she's been
second that
training
it's
me. She's been training me that
mm.
then if I have that backpack, she takes me to that park. Where if I don't have that backpack, she doesn't take me to that park.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that it's like if you go to bed and you are on your computer, when you go to bed, your brain says, okay, it's time to play on the
Yeah, it's
computer.
part of
It's
work.
like picking up the backpack. It's
Yeah,
like, yay, it's time to be on the computer. No, it's time for sleeping.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And that's another reason why bedtime routine is so important. Like coming up with a routine that goes from like increasingly active to like, winding down, so that your mind and says, okay, it's time. It's, this is what we do to get ready to warm up for bed. And
Right,
then after that repetitive motion, just, this is like the psychology behind it is like that behavior, that repetition and creating those habits are going to get your mind ready, say, okay, so, and your body. And that's
right.
another thing I cover is like some relaxation techniques to be able to relax your body and get your body into the space to get comfortable. There's even like an ideal temperature that the room needs to be. Like there's a lot of science behind it, and I don't get so much into the science, frankly, because I'm like, listen, I don't need to know the science to know that, like, my background is more like the psychology piece of it, or like the that part. So I'm like, I don't feel like we need to know all of the science in order to make the changes that we need to make in order to become better at sleep, become a better person during the day as well, as you
Yeah.
mentioned.
I always say
Because
I don't
that's
have to
really
know how
important.
my car engine runs. I just have to put
Exactly.
gas in it and turn it on.
Yeah, we have enough stuff in our mind.
Exactly. Then I'd lay in bed thinking about the science of sleep instead of sleeping.
Yes.
That's perfect. I'll
Like
tell you,
there's lots of courses. You can go read a book if you want to know the
yeah,
science behind sleep.
I
It's
have
just
a strategy when because my brain does have a habit of turning on and talking to me, even though I have quiet time, but I haven't
mhm,
done the writing down thing, so I should do the writing down
yeah.
thing. But my strategy is to distract it because I've been a long time meditator. So I use Ho'oponopono
Okay.
when do you know what that is?
No, I don't, but I,
Okay,
I figured you were going to tell us.
so I've talked about it before. So I might butcher it slightly because it's my interpretation of it, but it's Hawaiian and it's like it's an intention setting almost. It's four phrases that you use, and I believe they use it when they are having meetings and like gatherings and things.
Okay.
So and because I spent 14 years as a massage therapist, I know a lot of anatomy. So I lie
Mhm.
in bed and I go through each body part and I do the mantra. It's kind of a mantra for each body part. And I start at my toes. It's
Okay.
like, I thank you. I'm sorry. I forgive you. I love you.
I like that.
And then I get into that routine of saying that over and
Yeah.
over for each of my body parts. And it's interesting because I can feel the energy change and shift in each body part.
Yeah.
as I move through it. And at some point I forget what I'm doing. I'm like, what? And then I know that I'm falling
Wow.
asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That's similar to something like the body scan, where
Right.
like you tense that muscle starting with your toes,
Yeah.
tensing the muscle, holding it, and then releasing it, and like continue like that repeat
Yeah.
repetitive going through your body, and like it's similar to that. I like the mantras though.
Yeah. I like it because I don't have to physically move anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm such a light sleeper
Mhm.
that, you know,
Even you wake yourself up with your own
I
movements.
I wake myself if I'm sleeping on my back and I breathe too hard, I wake myself up.
Oh,
So,
yeah. That's
right.
I
Yeah, you and
imagine
I are opposite sleepers.
opposite. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, my husband's always like, how did you even sleep through that? I'm like, I did not hear a thing.
You're like, sleep through what, honey? That's awesome. And so our awesome people, podcast people can find you. Well, what's the name of your
So,
website?
Moms Without Capes, I have a podcast as well, Moms Without Capes.
Oh, I
Join
was
my
going to put
Facebook
that in
group.
the show notes too.
Yeah,
Your podcast.
join my Facebook group if you're on Facebook. You can find me on any of the channels, but my main place is Facebook. I only do Instagram because it lets me share with Instagram.
Right? Yeah.
So, I mean, join my Facebook group. I have a growing Facebook group that we do lots of fun things in there. We have a challenge, a self care challenge that happens a few times through the year. I think this is coming live in June. So, or in the summer months, kind of take a step back and we do just a boot camp. So last summer we did a um, decluttering. I forget what it was called. Banish the clutter boot camp.
Banish
This
the
summer
clutter.
coming up, we may do it again. I have all the stuff. We might as well, or we may switch it up. Who knows? We're only recording in January here, so
Right?
I just know, it'll happen. It'll
Yeah.
happen. But join
There
the
will
group
be something
around me to
cool.
stay in the loop.
And there's a link for people to get over to your website and get the program with a discount.
Absolutely. Yes. Momswithoutcapes.com/back to me. All one word, back to me. And there you will find the ABCD log. So, like a download that you can print out and use when you have your worry time. And
Yes.
then I'm also going to offer with the code back to me, all friends of Heather and listeners of this podcast, or if you're watching this via video, you can get a 20% discount off of my Sleep Matters course.
What a
So,
deal.
yeah. So
Yay.
go grab it.
Listen, your sleep is worth the investment, friends, right? My
Absolutely.
goodness. And
Yes.
all of that information is going in the show notes. So if you missed it, don't worry. It's written down for you because I know I'll be listening as I'm walking and like, shoot, shoot, shoot. But it's in the show notes. Don't worry. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your fabulous knowledge with us, Ani. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Absolutely. But before you go, I always ask, do you have a
Uh-oh.
final word of wisdom?
A final word of wisdom. I just want to just let you guys all know, like, you are so worthy of focusing on and prioritizing. And while I work with super moms, I want you to know that you matter and that you are worthy of taking care of. So make sure you're putting yourself on your own to-do list, making time and space for yourself because you're important.
That is perfect. That is awesome because that is what this is all about. Making sure we take care of ourselves so that we can be our
Yes.
best. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Heather.
And my friends in podcast land, I hope you have an amazing week. Remember to connect with Ani. Remember to get enough sleep. Take care, and I will see you next time.